Hello everyone. Good morning. We are the Group 6 and today we will be discussing about the use of demographics to guide global marketing strategy. To start off the discussion, I am Shania April Yumagi and I will be discussing about demography, its definition, and its characteristics.
Demography in general is defined as statistical data about the characteristics of a population such as the age, gender, and income of the people within the population. Diba? We often hear the word demography or demographic profiles when we are going to do surveys or interviews because that's how we are going to group our respondents. Diba, if gagawa na tayo ng mga table, yung statistical datas na yun yung gagamitin natin. If those persons are 18 and above, married ba, single ba, babae ba, lalaki ba, ganon. Demographic profile in marketing is a term used to describe a demographic grouping or target market. Sa marketing, normal yung target market kasi that's where you're going to sell your products. So, yung magde-describe ng target market mo is demographic profile kasi doon nga nakalagay kung ilang taon na sila, kung kasal ba sila, babae ba sila, lalaki ba sila, hanggang saan yung natapos nila, yung ganon. So, yun yung magde-describe ng target market mo. For example, you're targeting persons 18 and above. Makikita nila sa demographic profile na yung tina-target mo is 18 and above. So, demography has two characteristics. First is size. Size is estimated by counting the number of the people in that country. So, basically, yung size is the population of the country. It is the number of people living in that country or in that certain area. Second characteristics is composition. Composition is yung bumubuo sa population ng isang country. For example, this is age. Age, gender, social class, religion, income, and education. Sila yung nagpahati-hati na bumubuo sa population ng isang country.
Good day everyone, I am Majaila M. Cuevas and I will be discussing the characteristic of demography under composition, the age and gender. The composition of population can be assessed by using different criteria described as follows. A demographic profile is a term used in marketing to describe a demographic grouping or a market segment. Age and gender is a common demographic variables to consider. Age compositions or generations. The population is divided into three categories. These are child, which is 0 to 14 years old, working 15 to 64 years old, and aged 65 and above. However, age bands such as 18 to 24 and 25 to 34 years old and above are great predictors of interest in some types of products. Next is gender composition. Gender composition, one of the basic characteristics of demography. The gender composition largely reflects the underlying social, economic, and cultural patterns of a society. Gender classification of population is often analyzed by businesses as men and women have different psychological and physiological needs and they shop differently, such as a segmentation is widely used within cosmetics, clothing, and magazine industry. Also, gender often defines the duties, responsibilities, constraints, opportunities of women, girls, men, and boys in any context. Males and females have different physical attributes that require different hygiene and clothing. They also tend to have distinct male-female mindsets and roles in the family and household decision-making. And they are important because it gives information to allow better understanding in a background or in a certain background or group to help you create a market strategy.
Hello everyone, I am Lovely Cassandra Domogma from Group 6 and I will be discussing to you the family life cycle and the social class, which are both part of the composition of demography. Family life cycle. It refers to the stages of life through which family goes through, or the predictable steps and pattern a family experiences over time. It emphasizes the effects of marriage, divorce, birth, and deaths of families, as well as changing in income, expenses, and assets. Family life cycle is expressed as four major stages. These are the bachelor, married with no children, full nest, and the empty nest. The first one is the bachelor stage. It is also called the young and single. These are the unmarried and do not have any children. Young singles may live alone with their nuclear family or with friends, or they may live with partners. In this stage, they spend their income on furniture, rent, food, and other living expenses. Or in short, they have too much disposable income. Although earnings tend to be relatively low, these consumers usually don't have many financial obligations and don't feel the need to save for their future retirement. Many of them find themselves spending as much as they make on cars, furnishings for these residents away from home, fashion, recreation, alcoholic beverages, food away from home, and vacations. The next stage is the married with no children. It is also called the newlyweds or the newly married couples. Newly married couples without children are usually better off financially than they were when they were single, since they often have two incomes available to spend on one household. These families tend to spend a substantial amount of their incomes on cars, clothing, vacations, and other leisure activities. They also have the highest purchase rate and highest average purchases of durable goods. Examples of these are furnitures and appliances. Next is the full nest. It consists of parents and growing children. Full nest consists of three sub-stages. In the full nest 1, it is the arrival of the first child. It is the stage where the parents decide if one parent will stay to take care for the child or if they will both work and buy daycare services. They change in how the family spends its income, and they do not want to have disposable income in the family. They purchase new items such as baby foods, vitamins, and toys. They also purchase washer and dryer and home maintenance items. These requirements reduce families' ability to save, and the husband and wife are often dissatisfied with their financial position. The fullness too. In this stage, the youngest child has reached the school age, and the both parents are working and has improved the family income. The family's financial position usually improves, but the family finds itself consuming more and in larger quantities. The consumption are heavily influenced by the children and tends to buy things like bicycles, music lessons, clothing, sports equipments, and a computer. And the discount and department stores are popular with these consumers in this stage. The fullness tree. In this stage, the family grows older and the parents enter their mid-40s, and their financial position usually continues to improve because the earner's income rises. And also, the children earn spending and education money from occasional and part-time employment. The family typically buys some luxury appliances and purchases another automobiles and spends money on education. The last stage is the empty nest. It consists of parents or older married whose children have grown up and left home. The financial position stabilizes and there is no expense on children. The couple is free to enjoy their own pursuits and spend on luxury or self-improvement items and medical care. The emptiness too consists of older single retired people. Retired people living alone after the death of a partner. Life becomes lonely and income may reduce due to the retirement. This again changes the consumption pattern and living style of old people. Another point to note is that the family life cycle concept segments the families on the basis of demographic variables and ignores the psychographic variables, which is the family's interests and opinions of the family members. The stages at which families find themselves affect the nature of the goods and services required, their wants and consumption patterns, as well as the volume of consumption on specific products. Social class. It is a group of people within a society who possess the same socioeconomic status. Social class or status is identified by income levels, education, and occupation. Social class can affect the consumer spending habits, and the most obvious effect is the level of disposable income of each social class. Generally, the rich have the ability to purchase more consumer goods than those with less income, and those goods are of higher quality.
Good day everyone, I'm Marika Ardula from Group 6 and I'm going to discuss about two characteristics of demography, which are the race or ethnicity and religion. And we were going to find out how these categories play an important role to help an organization targets its consumers more accurately. Let's figure out first the difference between race and ethnicity. Race is a socially defined category that is based on physical differences between groups of people. In the US, race is identified by broad categories of skin color, while ethnicity is also socially defined, but instead of using physical characteristics, these groups are defined by a shared language, religion, nationality, history, or some other cultural factor. Population classification based on race or ethnicity are arbitrary. Individuals usually identify their own race or ethnicity in the population census conducted by their countries. When we say census, it is an official population count or survey, usually recording different individual informations and details. For example, USA Census shows that there are six race or ethnic categories: American Indian, Asian, Black, White, Hispanic, and others. People belonging to different races or ethnicities have many different interests, food preferences, clothing habits, attitudes, beliefs, and many other attributes. And this could affect both their response to advertising and their buying habits. Business organizations also use such data for a variety of business strategies. Many companies are adopting diversity marketing tactics, and they are seeking to reach new customers in different racial, ethnic, and cultural groups. When engaging with the global marketplace, it is very critical that audiences in different countries often respond to the same message in the same way. Procter and Gamble or P&G is one of the companies that successfully use diversity marketing to reach into new demographic markets. Procter and Gamble has invested a lot in the black community, and advertisements for products such as Tide, Oil of Olay, and Pantene that frequently feature black families and fathers especially that resonate with African American consumers. They often use the data to design advertisement that can attract the dominant category. As much as other demographic characteristics such as income and age, data shows that race and ethnicity are also affects the consumer spending habits. But take note that advertisers need to be aware about all the cultural differences because race and ethnicity are sensitive categories. What they put in advertisements may offend certain cultures, so understanding race and ethnicity and all the differences that exist is very important for marketing. Advertisers must ensure that their efforts effectively measure the true community's preferences and behaviors. Let's now proceed to religion. Religion categories in demographic classification also vary across countries. According to Adherents, an independent, non-religiously affiliated organization that monitors the number and size of the world's religions, there are about 4,300 religions in the world. In India, major religions are Muslim, Hindu, and Christian. Let's talk about the target markets for each religion. First off, Muslims. We all know that Muslims can't eat pork. They have been prohibited from eating pork. So obviously, they are out of the target markets who sells pork as they are not going to buy them. Second one, Hinduism. Hindus cannot eat beef. It's a sin for them as they believe that cows are their cups. So beefs are not a target market for Hindus. Last one, Christians. They are a little bit different as they don't have any prohibition in foods. They can eat whatever they want. So when it comes to food, they can buy everything. Religion influences the preferences of the target market, and so it is important to know the religious categorization of your target market. Business organizations take care of the religious sentiments while designing their products. For example, McDonald's India. The McDonald's in India has no beef or pork products. Like what I've said earlier, major religions in India are Hindus, and large majority of Indians follow Hinduism. Since they consider cows sacred, McDonald's in India does not serve beef or pork. However, you'll find a gazillion vegetarian options on the menu as well as chicken and fish. Interestingly, the restaurants also have separate sections in which vegetarian and non-vegetarian meals are prepared. That's all for this topic. Now let's hear for the next reporter.
Good day, everyone. Since the previous reporter already discussed the other characteristic of demographic profile, now let me share with you guys the other characteristic of demographic profile, which is the language and education. Now, let's get the ball rolling.
As we continue our discussion, now let's discuss about language as one of the characteristic of demographic profile. Depending on the major language spoke in a particular country, the classification of population according to language also varies across countries. For example, is the regional radio stations. So, as a future marketer, napakahalaga talaga na kinukonsider natin ang lengguwaheng ginagamit ng ating mga target customers sa mga target place na gusto nating pagdausan ng mga patalastas or advertisement to promote a specific product or services. Dahil hindi naman lahat ng tao sa bansang ito ay nakakapagsalita ng Tagalog or English, right? May mga sariling lengguwahe or dialekto ang bawat probinsya o mas kilala sa tawag na mother tongue. That's why considering the language in demographic profile is really important dahil kung gagawa tayo ng mga patalastas, not only in a specific place na gumagamit lamang ng Tagalog or English, we need to deliver it sa lengguwaheng mas lubos nilang maiintindihan. Now, let's proceed to the other one, which is the education. Education profile assessed by enumerating the number of people 18 years old and above attaining a specified level of education. Also often influence income, product choices, and standard of living. Understand how a group values education, you can tailor your marketing to that group. So of course, hindi naman tayo magpapromote ng high class or mamahaling product sa mga customer hindi kayang i-afford yung product na ino-offer natin. We should be considerate sa mga product na kaya lang ng budget nila and syempre yung mga product na kahit mura is long-lasting for them. And we have two examples dito about sa education. Number one, some groups maintain an anti-intellectual bias and they distrust people who talk in a too sophisticated manner. So, may mga tao talaga na mas gusto ang friendly approach na pagpropromote sa kanila ng product dahil mas nauusisa pa nila ng mga customer sa part ng customer na maayos ang product na in-offer sa kanila dahil sa hindi sila nahiya or na-intimidate sa paraan ng pag-approach sa kanila ng promoter ng product. And the other one is the group that prides themselves on achieving high levels of education. So, syempre, kung may mga tao na mas prefer ang friendly approach, dito naman, may mga tao naman or may mga tao naman na mas gusto or mas prefer ang professional approach or paraan ng pagpopromote sa kanila ng product dahil na rin sa educational level na nanating nila. And that's all for this characteristic. Now, let's move forward to the other characteristic of demographic profile and let's hear the next reporter.
Hello everyone, I'm Lucelle Magbo and I will discuss the continuation of demography. So, knowing the demographic data is very useful for businesses to understand how to market to customers or consumers and plan strategically in future trend in consumer demand. Without further ado, let's continue or let's proceed to occupation and income as the two of the most common demographic characteristic for global marketing strategy. Just keep on watching and keep on listening. Thank you. First, let me define income. So, income is money or some equivalent value that an individual or business receives, usually in exchange for providing a good or service or through investing capital. Income is used to fund day-to-day expenses. Investments, pensions, and social security are primary sources of income for retirees. For individuals, income is most often received in the form of wages or salary. Income is one demographic variable that can affect businesses. A company's products usually appeal to a certain income groups. For example, premium products such as a high-end women clothing usually appeal to women with higher incomes. On the other hand, people with comparatively lower income are more sensitive to price and therefore may prefer purchasing discounted products. That is the reality, di ba? The more the income, the more na ma-afford nila yung expensive clothes, car, house, at kung ano-ano pa. May panggastos sa luho, kumbaga. Samantalang kapag lower income, binabudget ang pera eh. At kung bumibili lang, depende sa pangangailangan at hindi sa kagustuhan. Pwede ring example natin dito is tayong mga estudyante. Dahil ang perang mayroon tayo ay sapat lang. At kapag bibili tayo ng damit o gamit, ang unang titingnan natin ay yung price tag at kung kaya ng budget or kung hindi kaya, edi pass na lang muna, 'di ba? Hindi na lang nating bibilin kasi nagtitipid tayo. People with lower incomes have less disposable income. Value is a major determinant in the products they purchase. Walang tapon sa mga may mabababang kita or income dahil nandun sa point na manghihinayang na lang magwaldas ng pera, kaya ultimo piso ay mahalaga. Pinaghirapan yan 'di ba? So you better spend it wiser. Another example is if people can't afford your product or services, there is no point in targeting them. After all, you wouldn't promote a Mercedes or Ferrari to someone who can't afford a used vehicle with more than 100,000 miles. Income targeting lets you measure the buying power of your audience. When you know the income range of consumers, you can usually find data to support how people spend money on both the higher and lower end of the spectrum. Many companies uses this data to sell different tiers of the same products based on income levels. Kaya nga sobrang halaga na malaman ang income range ng customers or consumers kasi doon ka magbibase sa mga possible na mai-offer mo para sa kanila in accordance to their income. Next one is occupation, wherein it is a general term that refers to the field or industry you are a part of or the work you are interested in. It can also refers to your role within an organization. Stating your occupation in an interview holds implications for you, your job, your profession, and your career in a single answer. Your occupation can play a big role in how you purchase products and services. For example, doctors and nurses may make different food choices when compared to truckers and construction workers. Again, magkaiba ang food preference nila. Like sa mga doctors and nurses, malaki ang sweldo nila, kaya ang tendency, mas marami silang choices pagdating sa pagkain dahil afford nila ito. Kumakain din sila depende sa kung ano ang alam nilang makakabuti sa health nila since they are health professionals. Kumpara naman sa mga truckers at construction workers na hindi maselan sa pagkain at pumipili depende sa afford nilang bilhin at sa mapapamura sila. Kasi kadalasan naman doon, minimum lang yung salary nila, 'di ba? Occupational concentrations of white and blue-collar workers are used as another gauge of markets' taste preferences. Specialty apparel stores thrive in middle to upper income areas and those with above average white-collar employment levels. Second-hand clothing stores, used cars, dealerships are successful in area with higher concentration of blue-collar workers. Office supply stores and large music and videos stores are especially sensitive to the occupational profile. These retailers target growth areas with the majority of white-collar workers. Kasi we all know naman na ang white-collar workers ay typical na higher paid, higher skilled, that require more education at ang blue-collar workers ay pang-physical o manual labor. So, alam naman natin ang difference ng dalawa. Executive and large organizations would make different clothing choices when compared to designers in a marketing agency. Job titles are especially necessary with an account-based advertising campaign. In comparison to traditional demand generation, account-based marketing is often described as a flip panel approach because it inverts the process. Rather than targeting individual leads, it targets the account level. Occupation targeting is also important since certain resources are aimed at different industries in job titles. The intent is to reach highly relevant account with the most revenue potential, so knowing occupation is integral. So that's it. Thank you.
Good day everyone, I'm Kimberly Anpisalvarita and I'm going to discuss the distribution of demography. We're going to find out how this category plays an important role to help an organization target its consumer more accurately.
So, let's start. Distribution of population depicts the density in a particular area. Population density is estimated per square mile of land area and measured by the following formula. So here's the formula. Population density is equal to total population of the area or size of the area. Population density is an important indicator of quality of life. So what is distribution? Population distribution means the pattern where people live, while population distribution is uneven. Places which are sparsely populated contain few people. Places which are densely populated contain many people. Sparsely populated places tend to be difficult places to live. Next is determinants of demography. Fertility, mortality, and migration are principal determinants of population growth. Population change depends on the natural increase changes seen in birth rates and the change seen in migration. Changes in population size can be predicted based on changes in fertility, births, mortality, deaths, and migration rates. First is fertility. In demography, fertility indicates the product or output of reproduction rather than the ability to have children. Accordingly, fertility refers to live births only, and infertility refers to shortfalls in live-born children, whether or not pregnancy occurred. So here's the formula of fertility. Crude birth rate is equal to number of the live births in the year or total population times 1,000. Second, mortality and life expectancy. Expectancy is one of the most important demographic indicators used to compare different population groups. It is defined as the mean number of years of people might expect to live. According to current age, a specific mortality rate, life expectancy, in the main outcome measured of life table analysis. So here's the formula of mortality and life expectancy. Crude death rate is equal to number of deaths in the year or total population times 1,000. Infant mortality rate, number of deaths of infants of less than 1 year old, total population times 1,000. So last is migration. In demography, migration is spatial or geographical mobility is concerned with quantitative aspect of the moves made by individual space. Migration forms one of the main three variables: fertility, mortality, or country. So here's the formula of migration. Immigration is equal to number of people entering a region or total population times 1,000. Emigration rate is equal to number of people leaving a region or total population times 1,000. So that's all. Thank you.
Hi everyone, so today we're on the last part of our module. My fellow members have finished discussing the demography and its definition. They also share with you guys the composition one by one, so I hope you learned a thing or two from that. And now, I am Joanna Marie Ayalundan and I will be discussing about the uses of demographic profiles on business organization. I will be discussing on how is it important, helpful, and beneficial, especially for the business. And in addition for that, I will be also discussing the disadvantage of this because we wanted to balance what we learned and we should know that everything has its pros and cons, advantage and disadvantage. So with that, let's go and let's get started. Okay, first up, uses of demographic profile on business organization. Of course, as the reporter before me shared the definition and the composition of demography, we must now learn on how will we use the demographic profiles of the target market or the consumer on the business's advantage. Number one use of demographic profile is production analysis. First, let us know what is the meaning of production analysis. Basically, it is concerned with the analysis in which the resources, such as land, labor, and capital, are employed to produce a firm's final product. With this definition being stated, we can say that the demographic profile has a very big impact on production. So how can I say so? Of course, a company should not just produce and produce. With the profile gathered from their target market, they must now know how much is the right amount that could shoulder all the consumers' demand, but at the same time is not too much that lead to the company to suffer from the large amount of excess. So gathering demographic profile can also help the organization to know what design or packaging will attract the consumer. Of course, we all know that people preferences differ from time to time and is based mostly on what is the trend. Production is one of the vital part of a business because that is what the consumer will see or hold. Number two use of demographic profile is establishing a selling outlets. So for me, the keyword here is conveniency. How will the target market avail or buy the product that the company produces? Let's say the company produces nice and quality products, but it is very hard to buy or find. Using demographic profile, we can see where most of your target market go or buy their things and needs. Today, as we are on a global pandemic, many businesses have failed and closed their stores since people aren't allowed to go out. However, online selling became famous. Why? Because people aren't allowed to leave their house and they are now more active online. This became an opportunity, of course. Internet became one of the selling outlets and was used as a channel to give conveniency and to provide the needs and wants of people. Here we can see the benefit of knowing the profiles of your target market. Number three is determining advertising and communication strategies. Advertising is one of the most common way of reaching out the customers and letting them know who your product is. Demographic profile help the organization know what your range and limitation as well. Let's say you only have a certain target market, but in advertising, it can also reach people who's in between of your categories or target. So as a business organization, you have the responsibility on your advertisement. You must know what can attract your customer but will not offend anyone. I remembered when I was scrolling through my social media account, I saw a video showing collection of advertisements who backhandedly and unpleasantly criticize the black community. It shows series of colorism and it enraged not just the black people, but everyone who noticed and become keen on that advertisement. So anyway, going back, recently many people are into K-dramas, right? And Lazada has seen this opportunity and paid and cast one of the famous K-drama actor Lee Min-ho. He said the famous phrase and invitation for online shopper, which is added to cart now. And it is a nice and smart idea for me to combine two of the trend, online shopping and K-drama. So in addition for that, demographic profiles can also show what language or form of communication can reach many people. The last use of demographic profile on business organization is strategic planning. So what is strategic planning? It is the process of documenting and establishing a direction of the business by assessing both where you are, and where you're going. Demographic profile helps and take a big role on planning because it involves a customer. They will be used to guide and show what path the business should take. Learning about their preferences and likes would help on how will the business will improve their products in the long run. So, that is the 4 uses of demographic profile on business organization. Let's now proceed to the disadvantage. Just like any other things, demographic profile has its disadvantages. So I will be discussing one of them, and this is businesses at risk of alienating people who fall between categories. Although demographic profile consists of many categories such as language, gender, and religion and such, there is still a chance for people to fall between or not one of it, especially now that things are progressing and showing drastic changes. One of the most common and talk of the town is the gender. So traditionally and biblically, we only have two, man and woman. But as the years goes by, LGBTQ have raised their flags and rights. They wanted to break the inequality and to have the same equal treatment. Business organization can be at risk for these changes, and if they are not prepared, they might fail. So that is one of the disadvantage of demographic profile on business organization. There are a lot, but I am only discussing one, and that is businesses at risk of alienating people who fall between categories. So, in conclusion, business organization must be keen and aware of how the market or the industry will change so they can keep up. So that's it for Module 6. I hope that we have imparted knowledge, and in behalf of my group members, thank you for listening and God bless us all.